Hey, what's up, AfterBuzzers? We are back for another episode of The Americans. Actually, tonight it's going to be a 2-for-1. So much is going down. We're going to get into it right after this.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Yeah!
So excited!
Here we go, here we go!
We are back!
Back in the building!
The pack is back, and oh my goodness.
The pack is back, the two Al twins.
Exactly.
Alina, Al.
We're back in the last 2 episodes. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Why is the show ending? It's so good. It's so good.
I don't know. I think Philip maybe told me not to talk during the music, so I'll wait. I'll save it.
Oh.
But I got so much to say. Is that cool? Okay.
There we go. So,
we go.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm your host, Alina Vision, and I'm welcoming my amazing co-host.
Hey everybody, I'm Al G back in the house. Glad to be back down with Alina. I go by Young Putin, aka Young Kremlin. Let's do it.
That's right. And I got to give you a big shout out for holding it down while I was gone.
Oh man.
You know, life sometimes just comes right at you, like we saw in tonight's episode, right?
Life, it just keeps coming at you, man.
Right,
Things start circling the drain.
Exactly.
You just got to roll with it.
So glad to be back. All right, let's get into it because we have so much to go over. So we're going to start off with episode 8, The Summit, which was last week. And my goodness, it was jam-packed. So give me your first thoughts about that episode.
Okay, the veil has finally been lifted with Elizabeth because as we know throughout the whole season, you know, we see her and Philip kind of going down these different paths. And I was always kind of salty of Philip for basically for snitching on her, you know.
Right.
That was still that's still infidelity for telling what your wife's doing. Even though, I mean, I guess like the relationship was at such a causeway, you know, he felt like they had no connection. That's the only thing he could do. He couldn't convince her. But the good thing that came out of it is that she finally realized she was being used. Like all the loyalty she has for her country, all that great ideology, it's just the people above her were basically manipulating her, not even telling her the whole deal. So her eyes are finally open. That's what I couldn't wait to see.
Yeah, I really love that episode exactly for the same reason. The fact that, you know, the opening, we had Philip and Elizabeth, you know, kind of butting heads, and he told her, I just want you to see. I want you to open your eyes and to see. And eventually at the end, she got it. And when she was talking with Claudia, she realized that they weren't giving her the whole story. And she was just going blindly into the night and doing their orders. And even Philip said, you know, it's on us. It's not on them. We're the ones doing it, not them.
Basically, it's like, okay, yeah, you do your orders and you're a soldier, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be the one pulling the trigger and out on the battlefield, you have to live with yourself.
Exactly.
So you have to live with these decisions.
And they're having a really hard time living with a lot of the decisions that they've had to make, especially I think Elizabeth in this season.
Oh my
because
goodness.
She's just been on a killing spree.
She's been on a roll. She's been on a spree.
She has
But this is the one time I know you'll get to it, but this is the one time she refrained from killing somebody.
Yeah.
I just knew she was going to kill Jackson, but she didn't. That was like the one time like she refrained.
She did, and we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah,
for
and I'm
sure.
worried about that one time coming back to bite her, but we'll see.
You know it might.
You know.
When you leave things hanging on a loose thread, and there's a lot of them out there.
Oh my goodness.
There's a lot, and I think especially in episode 9, we see things are just starting to
jig
unravel.
is up.
Yeah.
The jig is up.
All the strings are starting to be pulled from all different levels, and it's getting, the news is tightening.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Jennings, the jig is up.
It's about a wrap.
Yeah.
So anyways, getting back to episode 8, talking about that opening scene where Philip tells Elizabeth, you know, that he's been seeing someone, not seeing someone like another woman, because we all know that's happened before.
Right.
Basically insinuating about Oleg.
Yes.
And that there was somebody from back home who had reached out to him and was telling him, you know, to spy on Elizabeth. And Elizabeth just pretty much loses it at that point because she's like, how long has this been going on for? Why didn't you tell me? And, you know, for Philip's sake, he was trying to tell her before. But she had a point though, because she's like, you love to talk. So if you really wanted to tell me,
she said that.
I was like, girl, yeah, you got a point.
And you're right. And that's the one thing like I can't forgive Philip for, even though his intentions were right. It's like at the end of the day, you don't like spy on your own wife. Like that's the one thing you hope that they had going from them, that they always had that trust. But yeah, I mean, you know, Philip, he's the emotional guy, doesn't know what to do with all these emotions. He has to put them somewhere, whatever.
Right.
But
But it's like, the first thing you learn as a spy, I would assume, is to not trust anyone, even if that's your partner.
And that's another thing too. And I think
Yeah.
Elizabeth basically said a line similar to that. I don't know if it's in this episode or the previous one, but something to the effect of, it doesn't even matter, like, husband, wife, or whatever. Your loyalty is your loyalty.
Yeah.
So I guess at the end of the day,
Beeman actually brought that up too.
Was it
when
Beeman who said that?
Well, he brought that up. I know when he was talking to Henry way back when Henry was doing a paper on him, and he said like, yeah, I can't even trust my wife. And Henry was like, well, what's that like? And he's like, it sucks, But I mean, that's just the world he lives in.
And you're right, because Philip actually flipped it on her, because she's accusing him of basically of snitching her out, and he was like, no, you were going against the country.
Yeah.
Just like, whoa.
Yeah. And he was like, I was doing exactly what you would have done because I am trying to help our country.
Yeah.
So
that was a tough one,
was
man.
Good.
Yeah, it was good.
Such good writing.
Yes, it
okay. So let's move on to Elizabeth and Jackson.
Oh,
the intern Jackson.
Poor
oh,
Jackson.
Goodness gracious,
What
honey.
a sucker.
Yeah. 21 and just glazed over eyes for this gorgeous older woman.
I kind of like Jackson, though, because he's a film nerd. I'm a film nerd. He kind of reminds me of myself, and I don't know, aspiring to work in politics and stuff. And he has this other side where he's like, should I go the simple route and work in like construction and pavement, or should I, go work in politics?
Right. And work with this lady.
Yeah,
like, she's
and, like,
hot. Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, and she gets him the internship and everything. Then he just finds out like he's being used the whole time. It was so mad. Did you see the look on his face when he's like carrying the thing back to her? She's like, "Meet me over here."
He looked
the
like a
meeting's canceled.
scared deer
Yeah,
in
he looked like he
headlights.
saw a ghost, and she's like,
Yeah.
"You're wondering what's gonna happen." And then like, well, I don't want to get, because I know you have all this lined up, but let's go back to the hotel scene. Like you could see it coming. You know
Oh, you can totally see it. I mean, and she knows how. She's not. This is not her first rodeo.
Not her first rodeo at all. And guess what?
Yeah.
Sex means nothing to her. She said it. It means nothing.
Nothing.
Whore.
Okay, we're gonna get to that. Stay tuned.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, it's so clear that he's out of his league when it comes to her feminine ways.
Oh my God.
And
How do you guys do that? How do you guys do that with a clear conscience?
Listen, y'all are easy.
Well, a good man goes down every time, man, without a fight. God.
It happens. I mean, when you want to get something. But anyways, she sets up this whole thing of like, hey, can you, batting her eyes, I need this box dropped off in the specific meeting room where there's going to be a meeting, and they're waiting for it, don't worry about it. And of course, quote unquote, the meeting gets canceled, but the guy, Jackson, actually checks the clipboard and sees that no meeting was canceled and finds out that the meeting that was in there before was for the summit.
Yeah, so he knows something.
He knows,
He pulls out the top in their little meet. By the way, when they pull to the side, when they're kind of like breaking it down.
What did you think when she started pulling to the side? I was
they're pulling to this little dark alley.
done.
I was like, it's over for you, Jackson. When she pulls over to the dark alley, like another one bites the dust.
Because she had that look in her face that she always
Wait,
gets.
what about when she grabbed him? She was like,
Yeah.
I was like hardcore.
When she started to grab him and I saw the look on his face, I was like, she's not going to do it, because he looked so young and he looked like Henry.
He looked.
Exactly.
She saw her own child. That's what it took for her to finally
Exactly.
finally
And I
break
think she
through.
probably had Philip in her head saying, I want you to be human,
That's
because
exactly
she's
what
been
it is.
acting kind of like a robot whenever she's just following her orders and not really thinking about the humanity of the other person that she's, killing.
And I think that's what it took.
And he's like, he's innocent for the most part. Like, he didn't know what he was doing.
But here's how dumb.
He's a useful idiot.
Yeah, he is useful idiot. But here's how dumb and idiotic, though, he is. When she grabbed him by the hand, she's like trying to give him out. Like, tell me you understand. Tell me.
And
He's
he
like,
says,
no,
"I
I don't understand. I'm like, you big dummy.
Just say yeah.
Just say yes.
Whatever.
That was hilarious. That was hilarious.
Get out of there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I just feel like people who work, and they should honestly, tell their interns, if you work in the government, especially in the State Department, any type of where there's sensitive material, like this could happen to you. So you need to keep an eye out
gotta
for it.
tell them to sign an NDA or be aware of people approaching them or something. So.
Just out of the blue, and a couple of times too. Like, what are the chances that you're going to meet on the subway the lady that you were sitting next to at some random foreign film? Like,
he just has like sucker written on his head.
Completely.
Poor
And
guy.
it is what it is.
is what it is.
So yeah, I think she didn't kill him because he looked like Henry, and that was one of the times we saw like the beginning of her realizing her humanity.
Kind of like when Philip is forced to do all these manipulative things to Kimmy, and he's like, how can you not look at Kimmy and see a daughter your own age? You know, so those are the things that bring them back, and which is a huge theme I want to point out though too. I mean, I'm sure it's obvious to our audience, but to me, it goes beyond U.S. versus Russia, capitalism versus communism. What it really goes down to is family. And it's like, how far are you willing to go for what you believe in, your ideals and your principles? And are you willing to sacrifice your family for what you believe in? How far are you willing to go?
Yeah.
And that's what the show's about.
Yeah, completely. And especially episode 9. But we're still on episode 8.
Okay,
but I will get to that. I'm going to put a pin in that, what you just said, because I completely agree with you.
Okay.
And I actually wrote down a note about it. So moving on to the FBI. Ooh.
The feds, the FBI stands on the hunt, man. He's hot on the trail.
They are getting close and close and closer and closer to them. In this episode, we see that they're actually starting to look at Russian Orthodox priests, specifically Father Victor, because he's been moving up through the ranks rather quickly, and pretty much, I guess, the only way that they see that could happen is from the big ups back home in Russia.
Okay, and just to clarify, is the one there Elizabeth and Philip are hooked up with, is that Father Andre?
Yes, that's Father Andre.
And is Victor the one who snitched?
Yes.
Okay, snitched.
He's
damn.
a snitch, I know.
Yeah.
Snitchy.
She's a hater everywhere. You gotta watch your back, people out there.
Yeah, and okay, so I think it was the last scene in episode 8 is where Elizabeth is saying, hey, I have to go back out, to follow the negotiator, but she says Father Andre needs to meet. You do it, Phil.
Right.
Now, what were you thinking when she said that? Were you just like, oh, this is not a good idea? Because that's how I was feeling.
Okay, then your spider sense works better than mine, because I didn't have a bad feeling about it, but I wanted to see how they were going to resolve things with this character,
right?
Because we know the feds were on him. So yeah, I guess in the back of my head, like they had telegraphed that in the previous episode, that the feds are closing in on these pastors, and like, okay, yes, in the back of my head. So yeah, it can't be good when Philip goes to meet him. Yeah. But what was I going to say? I don't know if you're going to get to this, but this is an important thing in episode 8 I wanted to highlight. Did you peep the scene when Philip he puts on that new suit and he gets like tailored? And I was just like, okay, what's going on with this? And then he goes and he goes to the video store and he rents like this old sitcom from Russia that he probably watched when he was a kid. And then he goes to Stavros and he does this whole like mea culpa. Does that look like he's preparing for death to you?
Oh, interesting.
Just like he wanted to like get things right. I don't know. It just I was like, what was the suit scene for? You know?
I felt like the suit scene. I feel like with Philip, he kind of bought into our, the American culture that is capitalism, with his business, and he quit the KGB, quote unquote, and was doing his whole business thing. And now that his business is starting to go under and he's having to lay people off. And I did write a note about this, actually. Okay. It is a stark contrast from where we see at the very beginning of this season, in that whole montage of the song where he's like got his new suit on and a new car and his new, which is just the American dream, right. To now he's seeing that slip away from him. And so I feel like he went to try on that suit just to try to get that back, try to feel that feeling, and it just wasn't there. And so he went and he rented that Russian movie or TV show.
So all that had I'm sure sentimental value from when he was a kid or something.
Right, exactly. Just maybe be like, that is more of my home than.
And wait, you know who dodged the bullet too? When Philip goes and he goes and talks to Stavros, the old employee, and he's like, yeah, sorry, I really hated doing that. Just this company's probably about to go down now, and you probably got off easy by leaving early. And he's like, yeah, and I didn't call the police on you because I knew something was going on.
In the back room.
Oh my God. So,
I knew. I was like, there's no way, because they would always cut to him specifically, Stavros.
Okay.
They would always cut to him whenever they were in the travel agency, and I was like, he has, we don't know as an audience, but you have that feeling that he has to know something's going down. And sure enough, he knows something's going down, but he says, I'm loyal. I'm not a snitch.
Yeah.
So
oh my goodness.
That's another loose end. And that ties back, because I was like, right then and there, or close to then and there, Philip could have killed him.
He totally would have. The old Philip maybe 5 years ago would have killed him.
Yeah.
But like, not this
But
Philip
he
now.
didn't.
Yeah, he didn't.
Just like Elizabeth. And they actually cut to, right then, Elizabeth's scene with Jackson where she doesn't kill him. So it's like you see the change in character between these two.
The characters have gone full
Right,
arc, and I think her
exactly.
arc has probably been is bigger than Philip's, because Philip is always he's been reticent to kill people.
Right.
Not that Elizabeth enjoyed it, but he's always from the beginning. He's always seemed to be more compassionate.
Right.
But like she's finally completing her arc to going from this like a cold-blooded Terminator
Right.
to finally like having compassion. You know what really helped too? Shout out to that chick Erica, who she had to basically like help euthanize the painter.
Yeah.
But like Erica helped put her in touch, I guess, kind of like with her inner self. I think that's what one of the things they're trying to say, like with her art, she can finally like reflect on herself and her own pain and like see what she's doing.
Exactly. All right. Speaking of the painter, so she kills the wife.
Ruthless.
And ends up taking a picture of the work, and she has of the lady's work, and she has a hard time burning it. Now, one thing that really stuck out to me when he was like, pick whatever you want. I was thinking, girl, you need to go find that picture she drew of you when you were sleeping.
Oh, wow.
Because
I didn't
she
think
is
about
the
that.
only one who has a first-person drawing of what Elizabeth looks like.
Good catch, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we need to Alina back in the building. Good catch. I
She is
totally forgot
'cause
about that.
all these other police sketches, they kind of look the same, but not really. And those are second person. When you're describing someone to something for somebody else to draw, it's not the same as an artist specifically seeing it with their own eyes and drawing it. And she doesn't even know that it exists.
Woo.
So I have a feeling, that's another
Ding,
prediction
ding,
of
ding.
mine.
That's a good one.
That's
That's
going
a
to come
good
back
one.
to haunt her
Yeah.
for sure. So she decides on also not to kill the Russian negotiator.
Yeah, I mean, like her arc is complete.
Yeah.
She's finally like finding her own voice as opposed to just taking orders. And we talked about that. A good soldier follows orders, but at the end of the day, sometimes you have to question her orders or the hierarchy because they could be manipulating. And this is the perfect case where they were manipulating her.
Exactly.
And what we're really finding out is that it's not just, it's not like a USSR versus America thing. It's really like the old Russia versus the new Russia.
Right.
And oh man, yeah, we would really get into it. It's a deep concept, and I know we're going to get into it more later.
Yeah, for sure. Getting back to the FBI really quickly. In this episode, Stan is increasingly getting more suspicious of the Jennings.
Stan.
And it's finally starting to come together. And I kind of wish it would have come together. I wish there would have been bits and pieces beforehand, like a little bit, like a moment.
Right.
But his last moment was literally the first episode.
Okay, I forgot about that too.
Of the
Yeah.
series. And then he said he forgot about it.
Yeah.
And he just kind of let life roll. And now things are starting to come
Wait,
back.
all these things that we've discovered, all these loose ends, the fact that Stan's putting 2 and 2 together, the fact that Elizabeth let Jackson go, and like we're gonna find out he's gonna be blabbing later on, the fact that Philip let Stavros go, and you hope he doesn't say anything, and the fact that Elizabeth, didn't kill Nestorenko. So we've talked about like all these like loose ends they left out there. It's like it's only a matter of time where it's gonna implode on. It's just about like it's just like how and when, and like we want them to get away, but we don't know how. And anyway, that's why this episode was so good.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna save this one for my prediction because I got a prediction. But Stan's girl is now, you know what I'm going to say about that? She is getting an interview at the FBI.
What about the point when she's like, "Do you think I'll get the job?" And he's like, "If you're a loyal American."
Yeah. And I'm thinking, God, Stan, they're all right under your nose.
Poor
all
Stan,
of them
poor
right
Stan.
under
That would
your
make him look like that would
nose.
make him look terrible, right? All these like KGB agents, like like sleeping with him
Like
next
at
door.
that point, you just need to retire.
Yeah, you're like, Stan, you may not be doing a good job, Stan.
Exactly. Also, Stan goes back to Gregory's pal and asks him about Elizabeth.
That
and
was
he
a
even
good
has
one.
a picture. And I was surprised that Gregory was like, could be her, could be not her.
Yeah, it was Gregory's friend, right?
Gregory's friend, sorry,
yeah,
yeah.
I love that. And like I told her, like, where do we know this guy from? Yeah, and it brought it back to the whole Gregory character.
Yeah.
He was, for those of you who don't remember, he was like the young brother who was more like a Black Panther. He was like a
Right.
subversive, and he and Elizabeth, would hook up and kind of like just basically do these subversive things, against the government. But what keeps coming up is that he remembers the girl was pretty. He says she had pretty hair. Then that guy who died, William Cradle, the one who was the U.S. guy who like gave away the chemical secrets or whatever. He was like, yeah, she was really pretty. They had these wonderful kids, and every time it kept coming up in Stan's mind that every person says, oh, she was really pretty. She had these pretty hair. They had these wonderful kids.
He's like,
all
ding,
American
ding,
couple.
ding.
Ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
right under his nose.
But I mean, in the next episode, we'll talk about that then.
All right.
All right. You know what? We're having so much fun.
Yeah, we are.
Totally. And you know what? If you guys want to have fun and learn and grow in all areas of your life, for those who do, we have the podcast for you. That's right. Conversations with Maria Menounos, podcast edition, is hosted by our AfterBuzz TV founder and drops Fridays on iTunes.
Hey.
You gotta check it out. Conversations with Maria Menounos features celebrity and influencer interviews, along with secrets and tips on how to be better in all aspects of life. From health to wellness to career, relationships, finance, and more. Let our Maria be your big sister you've always wanted. Just go to iTunes and subscribe to Conversations with Maria Menounos for free. Be sure to rate, comment, and when you do, let Maria know it was us that sent you here. Specifically Al and Alina, right?
Hey, that's us. We got you.
That's right. So Conversations with Maria Menounos podcast edition. Check it out. Ooh, I like that jam.
Havana.
Havana. And just a reminder, we have also the Cold War flashback coming up.
Okay.
But we're gonna start off with episode 9 tonight. Okay, so Jennings, Elizabeth, and it opens with Sam Beeman doing the search.
Okay.
The search on Philip and Elizabeth.
Dude, he's doing his Googles.
Before Google existed, when it was like that green screen computer and everything took forever.
Yeah.
So what was your overall impression of this episode? Let's start with that.
Yeah. Overall, it was incredible. It was incredible. You and I were just like stopping and looking at each other each time. This Americans is one of those shows, and I don't say it just because we're on this show, we're doing the panel, but I've been watching this show for like the last 6 years. I've seen every episode. It's literally one of my favorite shows on TV, and it's because of the writing. Like we were just talking about that. It's because of the characterization. It's like, the politics and stuff and all that is great, but that's really like window dressing compared to like how compelling the story is and then the characters are. And what you're really going to want to see is, like we said, what's going to happen with Philip and Elizabeth and their kids. That's what I care about.
Right. Exactly. It's weird that it's good writing when you're cheering for the people who are supposed to be quote unquote bad. You know, like you're cheering for them.
And that's what, again, that's another reason the show is so good. You put your finger on it. I don't want to say moral relativism, but just that, there's like no black and white, there's the gray area.
Right.
And segue, we're going to get into that when I talk about my latest news and I talk about like how the Americans do their little opening credit sequence.
Yes,
and
I love it. I can't wait for that. So let's get into it. So for me, with this episode, as soon as like we finished it, I was like, goodness, this takes me back to like my college ethics class. And it's specifically an ethical theory called utilitarianism.
What is that?
And it's pretty much like the best option is the one that causes or that creates the most pleasure for people. So like you do things for the greater good.
Right.
You might sacrifice one thing, but if it helps more people, that is the best option.
Correct.
And I felt that was like, why I came to that conclusion was because of what Oleg said to Stan, what Elizabeth did, what Phillips, like it seemed like every character for the most part in this, main characters was on that certain route.
Right.
And that's what I felt. I was like, okay, Elizabeth's now doing things for the greater good.
Right.
And
Oleg, I'm sorry, cut you off, but even
Mm-hmm.
Philip even mentioned that.
Yeah.
Who was he talking to? But he said the exact same thing. It's like, it's not about that. It's like, she like wants to save everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like she wants to say, he was talking to Father Andre.
Okay.
He was saying that, she just wants to save the world. And that's kind of, now that her eyes are open, and even when her eyes were closed, she thought she was doing the right thing for her country.
Yeah.
So, okay. So getting back into it, Stan is searching Elizabeth and Philip. Oh my goodness. And he doesn't really come up with anything on Elizabeth or the travel agency, but there is a hit for Philip. but it's a completely different person.
Yeah, it's funny. Because my eyes aren't that good, I actually thought that it'd say hair black, but you're telling me it said it's actually a black man,
I
right?
thought it said, I just saw black, and then I saw that the age was 23, and I think the date of birth was 1963, so that would put someone at 23. But we were also saying that, you know, Philip Jennings can't be that unpopular of a name.
There's got to be another Philip Jennings.
So it's kind of
around.
like a could be, could not be.
Yeah.
But that definitely sends Stan down this longer road of really trying to figure out
the rabbit
what's
hole.
going
and
on.
one thing I was telling Alina, to me, it's more obvious if someone doesn't have anything, because I feel like everybody's got like a parking ticket or something, and you look at somebody's records and it's totally clean, like nothing there.
Yeah, I get that. I think for sure with today's technology, that type of stuff would come up, but that was pretty rudimentary.
Okay, yeah. They didn't really have everything, all the records digitized
they
yet.
Didn't have, no. Those were floppy disk computers, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, they didn't quite have the programming, but I don't, who knows? So yeah, there was no match. And when Stan goes to visit Phil, woo, holy awkwardness.
Yeah, when he goes walking in there.
What
was the first awkward joke? Hey, Stan, you want us to do the FBI's flying travel?
It was just like you could tell, because it was just so, I think he was so caught off guard, like, what's he doing here?
Yeah.
What is this? And he's just, in this weird place now he doesn't know. Like, we know as an audience that Beeman's on to
Stan's
him.
working him.
Exactly, but he doesn't know.
He doesn't know, and he's trying to keep cool.
He is. He definitely is trying to keep cool. And yeah, I mean, he's trying to get
All
everyone.
up in it.
He calls Pastor Tim.
Ooh, calls Tim?
He brought back Tim.
Oh my, dig up
Shout
Tim
out
from
to
the
Pastor
past.
Tim, who's actually Kelly Aquan, who's also on the Showtime show Billions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which one is Pastor
Great
Tim?
guy.
Who
Go
does he
follow
play?
him on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, he called.
He didn't snitch.
He didn't snitch. Now, here's one thing I wrote down. Okay, confidentiality, because it was a confidential statement that Paige made to him as like a pastor.
Paige is dumbass. I'm sorry.
I know. Comes back to bite you, girl. All that yelling you did at the end.
Exactly.
Her mom could have pulled that out.
It really would have been all on you if they all go down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Pastor Tim did not say anything.
Didn't say anything.
He lied. A man of the cloth lied. Was it for the right reason?
Ooh, that's a good question. What I'm going to do is look at that question by not looking at it from what I know from Philip and Elizabeth's side, because we know that they've actually trying to like work toward peace now. But I'm going to look at it from his perspective as a pastor. If he looked at it from a limited point of view, like, okay, they're enemies of the state, I'm surprised he didn't go back on his word or whatever this oath is. And I get it. It's kind of like, okay, that with the Russian pastor went through the same thing. Like, like, do you break your oath or not? Is there something bigger than your oath? So I'm surprised, because I thought he could have justified it by like loyalty to his country and maybe saving lives. He would have looked at this like using that Axel that you use, that theorem, that this is saving more people by by revealing this little information. So I was actually surprised that he didn't. And the only thing I could think of, maybe he said something, is like when Beeman asked about Paige, I want to say it's maybe because he thought Paige's life would have been ruined.
Right.
That like the wheels started turning. He's like, okay, maybe I just don't want to ruin her entire life and see her family go to prison.
She was innocent in it.
Yeah,
Little does he know.
Yeah, I know.
Little does he know about Paige.
Pastor Tim turned out to be ride or die. Look out.
I mean, yeah, I was kind of on the fence about whether he would or wouldn't, because he did have. The reason why Paige was, directed towards the church was because he was against a lot of the things that actually Philip and Elizabeth were too.
Yeah, he's
it
a
just
very
wasn't
progressive
right.
pastor.
It just exactly. So I think he got close. That was smart of Elizabeth and Phil to say, hey, we need to get close to him, because it ended up coming back in their favor in the end, I think.
Yeah.
Because had they have not done that,
They
then
did the right thing.
exactly.
And there's something to be said about all these relationships where you actually end up befriending somebody on the other side.
Because then there's a loyalty.
There's a loyalty, whether
Right.
it's with Stan and the Jennings, or whether it's with the Jennings and the pastor. I think even if somebody's on the other side, it's all about how you treat people. Like, we may be on opposite
Exactly.
sides, but if you treat me with integrity,
see their
and you seem like,
humanity.
I see your humanity. At least you care about me, so maybe I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And you gave him a chance to get to know them.
Basically.
You know?
Yeah. And basically, like, That's what
Life lessons.
life lessons, man. Who are
Life
you on the
lessons.
inside? Who are you?
Exactly.
What do you stand for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was cool to see Pastor Tim come back, definitely. But you could tell that Stan wasn't buying all of it.
Yeah, that was the longest pause
That
I've seen
was
in
a
a movie. It was like
long
20
pause. He
seconds
wasn't
of dead
buying it.
silence.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Stan is not, it's just not sitting well with him. So he actually tells Dennis. He tells Dennis what's up.
Dennis thinks he's crazy.
Yeah, Dennis is like, no, I don't think so. I mean, it is a lot of circumstantial evidence, but he's like, I don't see it. They're not. There's no way.
Yeah, I mean, when you really think about it, it makes for compelling television, but how long did Elizabeth and Philip think they can go and like maintain this ruse and like nobody know? Stavros knows, people across the street know, everybody knows about you guys.
Yeah.
You guys are like the last people to know. You're the last people to know that the
That other
jig is
people
up.
know.
Yeah, that other people know.
You thought you were being slick,
You
not
thought
so
you were being
slick.
slick,
Not
yeah.
so slick. Okay, speaking of Elizabeth, we got a flashback of her this episode where she's back in Russia and she's going through her training. And we don't really know what's going on at first. Obviously, when it's present time, Elizabeth, she's following the negotiator, and there's no dialogue, no nothing, but you can tell she's really in her thoughts. Her thoughts are her dialogue. And we come to find out that she's thinking back to a time when she was on a mission or training, and she comes across an accident where a policeman was dead, his horse was in like disarray, and another guy was almost on the brink of death from a motorcycle accident. It was just an accident. And she left.
And she left. But
left
real
them.
quick, did I pick up though? We're gonna get into how she handled it, but did I pick up also though, rightfully? Maybe you guys can tell me in the comments that the accident, one of the people in the accident was somehow related to like her training mission.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think the lady said that like you don't leave a comrade down,
yeah.
meaning just like any other Russian.
In other words, yeah, it's like if you have your mission, but at the end of the day, it's all about like leave nobody behind. People.
It's all about don't leave other Russians behind.
Yeah,
and I think that tied back to her
100%
not going after or killing the negotiator and actually becoming now his secret bodyguard.
Yeah. 100%. I hate to like take it to one time my dad told me, but one time my dad
Take it
said,
there.
son, he said, who are you? And I was like, oh, I'm me, blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, who are you? Like, what do you stand for? And that's what it exactly was with
Right.
Elizabeth. It's like, if you're serving your country, like, who are you? The type of person who leaves somebody behind enemy lines, or do you go help them? Do you risk yourself, or do you like skedaddle out the back door and snitch?
Yeah.
So that we're finding out who these characters, what their character is, what they're really made of, each of the characters.
Yeah, exactly. And she decides maybe this is like her kind of not retribution,
Redemption.
but redemption.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Her redemption moment, like
Yeah.
because she was thinking back to that, and like now she's like, I can do the right thing, and I
Exactly.
can make sure that this person doesn't get
Yeah.
killed because I know exactly what they're gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she actually goes and kills this KGB agent who's after the negotiator.
I was glad that she killed her,
In
though.
broad daylight, and walks off like as slick as she is.
And,
She
and
is
it was
just
the agent that was trying to snitch on Oleg too, right? It was the female agent.
my
Wasn't
God,
that it?
I
Wasn't
didn't
that
even
her?
catch that. I
Okay,
don't know.
audience. Okay, the cut to the after Elizabeth had taken out the agent, the replacement killer.
I mean, they
that
did
Claudia
do a
sent,
long
I felt like they
thing on
lingered
her.
on her. So I
Yeah.
felt like I could be wrong. Maybe you guys can help me, but she looked familiar. So I was wondering if she was the same KGB agent that like Oleg had sold
Right,
out,
right.
and so she was like the backup they threw in there. Anyway, something interesting.
Huh.
I thought she looked familiar because they kept lingering on that close up of her.
That is very interesting. Speaking of Oleg.
Oleg.
Oleg. Oh, I know.
Oleg. Oh, I knew he was gonna go down. I knew it.
God, I just feel, it's just like, if people could just listen to each other. So Oleg, Philip does a drop to him. Oleg picks it up. The people are on Oleg. So they say, hey, he's been in the dark for like 2 seconds. He could have picked something up. Dennis says, go take him down if he's there, search him. Sure enough, they find the note. It's a coded note,
Right.
and he won't uncode it.
Right.
But it was a sad moment to see because you could just see the look of disappointment in its face, and just like you don't know what you're doing.
There's this close up
Yeah.
too on right when they arrest Oleg. There's close up on his face where you see it all, and the audience is like, "But wait, he has a family, he has a kid, and he didn't even want to do this, but it was one last mission, and he was already out, but they pulled him back in for one time. That's
Yeah.
the one time they get him."
Well, check this out. So, and this might be one of my favorite scenes was between Stan and Oleg
That was a good
in
scene.
that one cell. In the cell where Oleg tells him, you know, he pretty much lays it out on the line, the whole mission about Gorbachev thing. And he says, I have to get this note to the person that I'm supposed to get it to because this could all go down. And what I wrote down for this, obviously, was the greater good. He's doing it for the greater good. But also, like, just trust, because it took a lot of trust for him to tell Stan that. But it's also we're gonna have to see if Stan trusts him enough.
And Stan's dumb ass. He didn't get it. He reminds me of Stan, and that's what I love about the show. It's not favoring Russia over U.S. One doesn't have the moral high ground. It's these two people, these two camps that are too entrenched. Stan cannot believe in
He's like the illegals. I want the illegals. That's all I care about.
He can't fathom that Oleg's not telling him wrong information, that he could actually be working for peace. He just has so much distrust and enmity, which is the same side as the KGB, like Claudia and all the old school agents. They can't fathom that the U.S. would actually want peace. So it's like they're talking past each other. It's like the human condition, man.
Exactly.
We can't trust each other.
Exactly, which is like so sad. And it's you want to like yell at Stan, like just trust him.
Dummy!
As the audience knows more information than he does. And Oleg, one thing I really liked about him, and this is so weird to say, is that he didn't give up the illegals.
Thank goodness.
That's loyalty. That is like, if you work for an intelligence agency, that's a person you want working for you.
Yeah,
because
he showed them the picture.
He's willing to go to jail and not see his family or his new son for the greater good.
Ooh, that's a tough one, man.
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
I mean, that takes some serious character and like loyalty and just seeing the bigger picture of like, I will sit and I will rot in this cell for 30 years as long as there's peace outside.
There's that theme that keeps coming back, and each of the characters are dealing with, like, how will they commit these atrocities by dishonoring themselves, or will they dishonor themselves? I always think back to Game of Thrones reference. And anybody who watched that knows that the patriarch character at the end, Ned, he has to weigh on. He's like, okay, will I tell this lie to make people happy, or will I dishonor myself? And he actually chooses to tell a lie to save his family. And so I'm always wondering, like, how will I do in that situation? Will I tell a lie to save my family, or will I go down like with my honor, my quote honor, leave everybody
It's a tough decision.
Leave everybody in the wind.
Yeah,
it's a tough one.
It's a tough one, definitely. But that was an amazing scene.
Yeah.
Loved that scene. Moving on to, let's talk about, oh goodness, Philip and Father Andre. So Philip actually goes and meets him, and I was just like, oh no, this is not going to end.
They might be watching me?
This is not going to end well. And we as the audience actually see that while Oleg is being questioned by Stan, they come in and say, something about Father Andre and the fathers and all that.
Father Andre got snitched out by another hater priest.
So Philip meets up with him, obviously in disguise. Doesn't really matter because there's going to be surveillance pictures.
Right.
After Father Andre tells him, Father Victor, I think it was, might have snitched me out. Phil's like, are you kidding me?
It's like, I got reassigned. Do you think that means anything?
Yeah. He's like, get yourself taken, get out of here, bye. And he deuces.
And I love how the camera shows like Philip's POV, then he starts making out all the agents were like
he's
clocking him.
Oh my goodness, I know I'm being followed. And he just starts booking it.
I love that. He
was going faster than Usain Bolt.
He wasn't trying to be cool. No. He wasn't trying to be slick. He was like,
not sexy, nothing. He's like, I'm hightailing it out of here.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So he hightails it out of there, and eventually, switches kind of his outfit, hops in a cab, goes to a payphone, calls Elizabeth, and gives her the go code.
Oh my God, that was like my heart just sunk.
I live for this.
I was waiting. I was like, that's the moment that's coming, but you hope it never comes down to.
Right.
It's like, baby, I can't come home. I have a headache.
Everything's tipsy-turvy at the office, and she's like,
everybody. For those who watch the show, they would never talk to each other like that. So immediately, that's the code of it's time to bounce, get the go bag, get the kids, whatever. I'm waiting to see what they're gonna do with the kids.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do with the kids. Speaking of kids. Paige. Woo! She had a hot mouth coming in on her. I'm surprised Elizabeth didn't just
slap her. She might have earned her a fresh one, right?
So Paige comes in before Elizabeth gets the go code and brings up Jackson, saying that, you know, he was at a bar and the guy that she's dating, Brian, helped him because he was like drunk, and starts talking about the story. She puts two and two together, figures out it's Elizabeth, and she brings it up, and Elizabeth lies.
But wait, here's the funny thing. Paige could have really got on her a little deeper level. Wait, because Elizabeth got the idea to date and sleep with the intern from Paige.
From
That was
Paige.
Paige's idea.
From Paige.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she was just like, do you do this? Have you been doing this all my life? And then she busted out the whore. And I was like,
Mom, you're a whore.
like that is, excuse me. I was thinking for Elizabeth, I was like, God, she gave birth, she carried you for 9 months.
I brought you in this world, I'll bring you out.
Exactly.
That's what my mom would say. You can't say everything you want.
Exactly, but I mean, she just brought up, she's like, you're lying, all these lies, I should have known it. And then Elizabeth dragged Philip into it. She's like, well, your dad does it too.
Threw Pops under the bus too, man. She didn't have to throw him under the bus.
Philip's not even
Your
there
dad
to
does
defend
it too.
himself.
But the
Exactly.
best thing was she was like, sex is nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great scene. Keri Russell pulled
she
it
killed
out
it.
on that one for sure.
She killed it.
For sure. All right, so we got a few minutes left. So let's do the Cold War flashback really, really quick, because I want to get to predictions, because we got to get to predictions for this.
Okay. All right, everybody, for Cold War flashbacks. I don't know if we have the video queued up yet, Philip, but a couple of episodes ago that we didn't get a chance to do our flashbacks, they featured this independent film called Rafifi, and that's actually where Elizabeth arranged to bump into Jackson,
right.
like the intern and the film nerd. Anyway, what's so special about the film Rafifi, it resonates on a couple of levels. Number one, this came out in 1955. It was kind of like the dawning of film noir. America was kind of coming into its own form of cinema. At the same time, they had the French New Wave going on, so these like
Right.
really kind of like competing and elaborate styles of art. But the flip side of it was, this is how it also ties into the Cold War. The director of Rafifi, Jules Dasani, was an American director, but he got caught up in the blacklist. They brought him before the committee, like in the McCarthy hearings, and they stripped him of everything. So he was actually able to luckily get out of New York. He actually used to live in Harlem, but went to go live in France. So he was one of the victims of the Cold War and the Red Scare and McCarthyism.
Wow, that's great. There it is.
Yeah, there's the film Rafifi. By the way, excellent film. There's a really good.
I love how they tie in those things. Like,
well, and here's another
know?
tie-in. Here's a third tie-in. The show uses a lot of the same concept. What you see in one of the heist sequences in Rafifi is you see this everything goes dead when there's a heist. Like, the music goes dead. You just see feet, you see hands punching, you see people running over, but all you hear is the sound. You don't hear the music. And the Americans do that a lot. Like kind of like with Philip and them, like when they just have the shootout with the feds, the sound drops. All you hear about them is they screech into the garage. Philip breaks the glass. She doesn't say anything. They look at each other. And they chop the head, and you hear the chop. But there's something about there's something about like when you just lose the score and you just go down to just like naked sound, and it's a very artful technique that works in the Americans and in Rafifi.
Ah, nice, love it. Learn something new every Cold War flashback.
Hey.
You know what? We're gonna save the opening sequence for next week. I think that would be really good. It's so good, and I definitely want people to see it. But since we're running behind, we're gonna do that. I want to get to predictions.
Predictions.
Yes.
And now, your
I see all my
AfterBuzz
written down
TV
predictions.
predictions.
All right, I'm gonna let you go first.
All right. Well, I'm going to cheat because I know history already. Well, for those of you who don't know, we saw they show Gorbachev in the last episode. And if you know history, Gorbachev, he makes it out of the U.S. He comes home for the summit. But so in that aspect, you can tell, at least film to TV show wise, the coup doesn't happen.
Right.
Here's another thing interesting. I saw this on the internet.
Oh,
We're all worried about, is Stan going to bust Philip and Elizabeth and all that. Here's one. Stan
This
bust.
isn't a spoiler, is it?
No,
Okay.
it's not. No, I was debating this with somebody online. You guys can tell me. But Stan busts Philip and Elizabeth, and guess who busts in to save Philip and Elizabeth? Renee!
I knew it. That is
She's like, I had your back the whole time, guys. I'll take him out.
That is my prediction.
Is that your prediction?
That is my prediction.
I took your prediction.
Oh my God. Okay, so my prediction is, because Renee's she's not an unconsequential character. Like, she's there
She has
for
to be there
a
for a reason. They finally got to use her.
She's
like,
there for a
one
reason. Like,
episode
I
left.
think she's there to make sure that Stan, if he's getting close to that, to discovering them, she's gonna alert them or do something. She's definitely gonna become a major player, I think, in this next episode for sure.
That's a ticking time bomb that hasn't gone off yet.
See, and I think that Stan is obviously going to figure out it's Philip. We have the pictures coming, the surveillance pictures coming. Plus, there's other, just people out there.
It's
who
a
would
wrap,
know.
people. It's a wrap. The Jennings are caught,
And
people.
actually, I think he'll probably. Because there's such a friendship, I think he's gonna confront him.
That's what
and
I
he's
wanna
gonna
see.
figure out. I think that they kind of want the same thing.
That's what I want.
kind of think he's gonna be like, you need to get out of here. You need to go.
And I mean, that's what you're hoping for.
Yeah,
you know?
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping
But
for.
who knows? And here's another thing. So, Keri and Matthew were on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert at the beginning of the season, and Colbert asked him, could there be a sequel to this? And Keri said, maybe with the kids. So I think the kids are going to make it out okay.
Okay.
She said it could possibly be with the kids. You could tell their story.
That'd be nice for
So
next
it'll be
generation.
interesting to see what happens to the kids, what happens to them.
Oh my
All of this.
goodness.
Oh my gosh. I
The
can't.
Americans, it's almost over.
Why is it just one more? Stop. What am I going to do?
I don't know. We'll have to tune in next week.
Exactly. All right. Well, you guys let us know what your predictions are in the comments below. We love seeing them. You can also tweet at us. Where can people find you?
Hey everybody, I'm Algie. You can find me at Jamaica House Doc on Twitter and on IG at Algie_Jamaica House Film. Brat.
That's right. I need one of those brat. I'm gonna go, okay. Okay, so I'm Alina Vision. You can follow me on all social media at Alina Vision, and that's Vision with 2 S's. Y'all, we're at the wire, down to the wire. So we will see you guys next week, same place, same time.
And holler at us in the chat and the YouTube. Well, I see you guys talking.
From
there. I see
executive
you.
producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
Views expressed herein are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.